Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Camera Tuesday. In today's episode we're going to take a look at very age-old debate of RAW versus JPEG. So let's dive right into it. Since digital camera has been gaining up steam, it has become an integral part of our modern life, from your mobile camera to your point and shoot to your bridge camera to your mirrorless to your DSLR. Photos are everywhere. Basically it is an integrated part of our Facebook, Instagram, so you can't escape it. So photos matter in today's day and age. And then we have to come understand the fact that all the imaging sensor itself, like basically these and these, they are black and white. So the image they create is basically black and white. However, we put what we call color filters on top of them, something like this, pair array color filters, and that data is sent to the your processor, and processor based on that data, okay, my filter is like this, like if let's say this pixel is bright, that it is a red pixel. If this is a bright, that is a green pixel itself does not have any way of knowing the color of the light. All it does, it gives out information is whether it's bright or dark, and on top of that filter, based on that filter, we collect the color information. So, and JPEG that we talk about is basically the final image that goes to your Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. Basically that's the end user product, basically what you're going to use at the end of the day. RAW on the other hand is directly coming from the imaging sensor with as clean output as possible from the sensor. So it's not processed yet. So why we are so interested in RAW? Many of you must have remembered these are 35mm film roll. I still have a bunch of them. Basically this is how we used to do photography. Now many of you realize that this is not an image. To make this into a useful image, we do what we call developing process, where you develop them. Now once you develop them, the color gets inverted. That's why these used to be called negatives. So once you do the development process, it gets turned into other things, and then you expose it, and then you get your image output. Now this is same with RAW. RAW is giving you a black and white information. That black and white information also contains whether what kind of color filter was used. So you can have a different color arrays for different reasons. So it's more or less like this. It's a completely digital negative. Now it has almost low to no compression. Now many of you are like, doesn't RAW means no compression? Yes and no. RAW, basically if somebody directly gave you the sensor data that is coming off of your imaging pipeline, it would be idiotically huge. I'm talking one file could be upwards of 100 megabytes. For that reason, especially in high-end DSLR, you will see the fact that they will allow you to change the factor of 12-bit RAW or 14-bit RAW for these sort of reason, because you can use a uncompressed, completely 100% unalterated image that is coming, raw file that is coming out of user, but those will be very big and they will not give you what we call promising return. Basically they will reach a point where what we call point of diminishing return. Basically the file size would have been tripled, but you will not get triple the image quality. For that reason, there is some compression to your RAW. Do not take this do not think in this way that, oh, RAW means 100% lossless, 100% uncompressed. However, in today's day and age, with modern processors, what we have in your DSLR, mirrorless and things of that nature, you can get pretty close to flawless. So you don't have to worry about this, but be mindful, there is a bit of compression, especially in high-end DSLRs where they'll let you choose. And there are different tools. How, if you had experience with this, if you had multiple, let's say, studios that used to develop these things, if you give same roll, like let's say for you take same roll, cut them into two pieces and give it one to another, the colors of both of them would be completely different, because based on developing process there is a different sort of hue, different sort of saturation. Now they will be more or less same. It's not gonna be like your red becomes yellow or green becomes black, but there will be a bit of different tone to it. Same happens with RAW. This is crucial. Many of you know about this software, Adobe Lightroom. Now that's not end all be all of all RAW imaging. Basically there is another professional one which some people use, which is Capture One Pro, and there is this Light Zone, Darktable. These are softwares that are basically like a development process for your RAW. Now once you process same RAW file, basically you can duplicate the RAW file, take the raw file, Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V, do that 100 times and send it in these software. Each of them will give you different output. Now, reason for that is because I told you the raw is flat out just data. That's why they have some like very weird file naming format. Like Nikon could have a different format, Canon could have different format. Adobe themselves did try to come up with a format which will, like, allow raw level data to be stored in one basically extension. That's why you never see any camera file that has .raw in it, or you will always see .cr2, .nfc, things of that nature. So what Adobe tried is to create basically a negative format which they call .dng, digital negative basically. Now it worked kind of well, and right now if you're trying to import all your file into your Lightroom catalog, there will be a button on top will simply say convert to DNG. Now DNG has some advantages, some consequences, but overall people agree that DNG is better than most RAW, simply by the fact because, as I already told, RAW is specific to camera. If you buy a Canon camera, you might be like, okay, I have my Lightroom accepts Canon. Not necessarily. If you have a new model of Canon cameras, it will not work. This has happened when I bought this Canon 800D. My Lightroom, which was successfully able to translate Canon 700D, was not able to convert this RAW. I had to wait few months before the new Lightroom package came, which had the information. For that reason, DNG was created. Basically, it's a bridging system. Right now, even if, let's say, you buy a Sony camera or some camera that is so brand new that Lightroom does not have a converter for it, you can easily convert them into DNG. And some camera like Leica directly creates DNG, so you don't have to worry about, okay, I bought a new camera, will my software support it or not? So this is the RAW architecture. RAW simply means the sensor is giving you as much data as possible, depending on the limitation. They're not going to give you 5 GB file that is coming out of sensor. That is only done for astrophysics level reason, NASA level research, or things of that reason. So that's the aspect of RAW. And be mindful, every software has its own unique signature to it. So you may like, for people, Darktable may be good, for landscape, light zone might be good, for basically water kind of scenario, water and grass, Lightroom might be better. This is why I would urge you to experiment with all of them. Then we come to JPEG. Why the heck we bother with JPEG if RAW has the raw power? One simple reason, it's the final output. This is what people gonna see at the end of the day. Right now, when you are seeing me through the YouTube is also compressing the video file. So what you're getting at the other end, as in on your screen, is basically equivalent to JPEG. Now my camera is recording much higher quality. Now after I convert that, after that conversion gets scaled down for YouTube, then that scale down is converted again for YouTube server storage, then that scale down to 1080 to 720 to 720 to 480. So you lose a lot of information. But again, at the end of the day, that's what you can use. You cannot have your WhatsApp where you pull out and one WhatsApp image is barely taking 5 minutes to load because it's a 50 MB file. WhatsApp compresses your image file very efficiently, and you can see the consequence of this. So resolution will not change, but the color depth will be compromised. And if you try to do any sort of let's say editing on that JPEG, it will be bad. However, be mindful, JPEG that is coming out of coming to you could have multiple layer of degradation. So let's say you have directly from your camera in JPEG. In your DSLR there will be setting like JPEG fine, JPEG normal, JPEG small. So do not use JPEG small, always use JPEG fine or super fine or whatever the topmost quality there is, because if you get that, you get almost half the capability of RAW. So if you are good with exposure, you may not need full bandwidth of RAW. You will be fine. However, if you let's say take that JPEG file and you're like, okay, right now I'm gonna dump all that JPEG file into my WhatsApp and then send it to another friend. If that friend tracks out that JPEG from WhatsApp has already compressed it again. So he will get a much shittier image on the other end. So be mindful, even if it's .jpeg does not mean that JPEG is completely unaltered, because the JPEG that comes out of your camera is quite good, especially in RAW or super fine, what I'm saying, basically large format JPEG. So it's quite good. So if you have a camera that is not overexposing or it's very good with its white balance, you may not even need RAW. Then again, the room for improvement is very small. So if you let's say screwed up the white balance, changing white balance in RAW is much more comfortable. You change it and it does not start to fall apart. If you did that with JPEG, it's kind of you can still change little bit, but in RAW you can change this much in JPEG you can change this much. So I mean, like, it's not that you can't slide the sliders all the way, you can do, but image will start to fall apart, it will start to look fake. And the final reason, at the end of the day, size matters. Like, you don't have infinite storage, you don't have infinite memory card, so smaller size matters. Like, to understand JPEG, think of it this is the final format or resting place of your photos. You print it out and you keep it in your album, you print it out or you share it amongst your all the social media. So JPEG is the final stage. RAW is never final. You can never share RAW, but you can always share JPEG. So let's take a closer look at this RAW versus JPEG. All you have to understand, there are three factors that you have to balance out. First, size, basically how big your SD card is, because let's say you use 64 GB SD card, doing RAW will fill it up much more quickly. Doing RAW plus JPEG will fill it up even quicker. I recommend doing RAW plus JPEG simply because if in mid shoot your card crashes, it's much easier to recover JPEG than RAW. Because I told you, RAW is specific to camera and there is no universal format for RAW unless you count DNG, and DNG is only available for few camera manufacturers, like right out of the camera. So size matters. And not to mention, let's say even if your memory card is big, do you have that kind of storage in your laptop or in your desktop? Because you have to make sure the pipeline is complete. Then we come to the fact, speed. Speed is very crucial, like for let's say wildlife, where you may be shooting a bird. Let's say you shot a bird, first photo you compensated for your exposure, you made it out, everything is perfectly lined up. Now you do not need RAW. At that point you can switch to JPEG and do burst mode. That way you will get a lot more shots, and because you have already nailed the exposure, already figured out the white balance and things of that nature, you can get a much much higher hit rate because your camera is shooting faster. So speed also matters. Now of course, if you are taking landscape, I would say use RAW, because there is no point in landscape is not gonna run away. Bird might, but landscape will not. So this is another aspect, speed. Now speed will directly affect how quickly, if you are doing action photography, sports photography or things of that nature. Then we come to the time. Now this is the final aspect. Time is money. From your camera size and your camera speed, it may not be a big factor, however time will be. Like recently I just was at a family festival of Durga Puja, and I took my DSLR there and I took a lot of photos, upwards of 250 photos. Now to process that kind of RAW, even though I was doing simple adjustment, I was not going there adjusting everything to my heart's content. I was just making them a bit more vibrant because there were a lot of colors involved. So even that took time. Like I'm talking about 3 to 4 hours I had to spend just going through all the images, applying corrections and making sure they are properly cropped and things of that nature. So do you have that time? If you do this for a living, of course you have that time, do RAW. But let's say you do it for hobby, do you have that time? Do you want your time to be spent on camera or on computer? Because RAW does add that. Even though nowadays you can do that in your mobile, you can do RAW editing in your mobile, it's still a matter of fact that you have to spend time. This is the final cost. So be mindful, if you have time, if you're comfortable, if you only shoot let's say 50 to 60 photos a day, and then you have 1 to 2 hours a day where you can just relax and sit in front of a computer to tweak the colors, go for it. But be mindful, these three things you have to balance out, and that's why I'm not giving you a clear guideline whether what to use, RAW or JPEG. Based on these three factors, based on your equipment, based on the time allotted to you, you can easily figure it out. So this was my presentation on RAW versus JPEG. I hope you liked it or learned from it. In that case, please leave a like. If you didn't, don't worry about it, dislike it, and I would urge you to leave a comment and share it amongst your friends. Please subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.